Anyone having a particular struggle that they'd like to mastermind around a little bit later in the hour?
Jodi, I struggle, but I want to ask a question. I have, I met a friend's older child who's relocating back into the area and wants to buy a home here in the near future. I thought we had like a buyer's, not the lead sheet where we ask them the lead questions, but like a worksheet for them to say like, to kind of come across that says, I'm looking for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath or whatever it might be. We have that, right? I keep looking through
There might be something in the Ignite materials for that, but that is better left to a conversation. So okay. I would definitely start with the buyer lead sheet, because that's the most important thing, like we've been talking about, is to get their motivation, because that doesn't only help you now, it helps you later on when they start hemming and hawing or when troubles arise in a transaction.
Okay.
And then you set the appointment for the buyer consultation, and it's at that time that you're going to get the bedrooms, bathrooms, and all that good stuff.
Okay. I just wanted to make a kind of a good touch, like reach out. They moved back into town 2 weeks ago, so I didn't bombard them. I texted them when they first got in, just welcoming them. But now I want to send like an email saying, hey, here's the first few steps, and kind of send them some lenders if they don't have anybody. And I wanted to kind of give them that sheet to say, here's some things to think about or work on but I guess you're right. It's better to get my contract signed first instead of doing all that.
Definitely. Hi, Fabi. Can you turn your camera on?
So Jodi, I was going to say, I've been holding open houses for this one listing, and it's just, I've got some good prospects coming in, signing in, and feel like I'm making a good rapport at the open house, but I'm having a hard time converting into, the next step. Like I've talked to them or played phone tag, and it's kind of, so that's been a struggle. And it really seems like I've come across and had a good conversation. Then I'm calling them even right away, like that evening, and touching base before. But it's just they ghost or won't commit or think that they can still do that certain aspect on their own.
So that can be common. So are you sending them like a thank you text right after the open house for attending your open house?
Yeah. So first I'm calling.
Okay. So you might try to send a thank you text, right? Mm-hmm. Thank you for attending my open house. It was so great to meet you. Did you have any other questions? I'll be calling you soon to follow up, right? Because now they have your phone number and they know who that phone number belongs to. Okay. A lot of people these days are like me. I don't answer a phone number if there's not a name attached to it in my phone, because there's just way too many spam calls out there. Right. So if they need me, they will and my voicemail directs them to send me a text for a faster response. So they'll either leave me a message or send me a text, and then I will happily return the call if it's for me, but not a spam call, right? So that might help some of that. But also keep in mind that sometimes open houses, what'll happen is they may ghost you for a time, and then when they're ready, they won't. But here's the thing. Does anybody here know what the average amount of time it takes to get in touch with a lead and to make something happen? How many times?
Yeah, it's like 5 to 10, right? Or something.
So the average is 8 to 12.
8 to 12.
Okay. Sometimes it takes more, but the average is 8 to 12. Here's what happens. And let me ask you a question, Ernie. When you do follow up with these open house leads, how many times do you typically follow up before you get maybe discouraged and give up?
Oh, see, probably about when I get right around 4 or 5.
Okay. So
yeah, to be honest with you, that's how I think about it.
What's really interesting, and Maria's sharing her story. Maybe I can go and find the graphic of it. but it's on average, it's 8 to 12 times that it takes us to follow up with somebody before anything happens. The vast majority of people will follow up once, right? They'll make that phone call once. Many will make it twice.
Hmm.
Very few will make a third attempt, and beyond 3, like only 10% of people go beyond 3. Very few go even up to 5. But where's the sweet spot?
8 to 12.
8 to 12. So most of us give up long before the sweet spot. And then we wonder, why are we not converting any leads? It's because we're giving up. So there's something called the 21 days of pain.
21 days of what?
Pain.
Oh,
I like to refer to it
days.
as 21 days of gain, right? Because if you do what we consider painful for 21 days, in other words, 3 weeks, or at least 5 of the days during a 7-day work week, right? Then you gain. That's where you're going to start to see some results. So don't give up. And here's the clue. Doesn't matter how many days or times you've tried it. Once you've done it for 21 days, put them on a smart plan and let the smart plan do the work. But here's the thing. You don't let the smart plan do the work until either that time is up, and then you never give up until either they answer the phone and you've connected with them, or they tell you to stop. If one of those 2 things hasn't happened, you keep going, because so many times after open houses, we just get busy, right? Especially in today's world, we're so busy. And then they will suddenly return your call or answer your call when they're ready to do, when they're actually ready to do something.
Yeah, because
But that's if you didn't give up, because think about this. So many agents out there doing open houses, right? So if you guys who are being taught, trained, and coached better than any other company out there, and this is a fact, think about how many times they're following up if you're not following up enough. They're following up even less. So if you keep going, you're going to be the one that they reach out to when they're ready. And sometimes it's months. I've had it happen, but it works. Just don't give up.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, because I've got this thought in my mind that I'm supposed to, get in contact with them within, a day or 2, or, in talking, and hey, let's go find yourself a house for them. And like, there's one guy that was positive, but he didn't want to sit down, do a consultation with his wife, et cetera, et cetera. He says, no, just send me properties and we'll go look, type deal. And it's like, I said, and then I told him, I go, in this type of market, that's not the way it's working right now. I said, I'd like to sit down with you and find out exactly your criteria, when you're ready to go, and all that stuff. So
But remember, it starts with the qualifying questions.
Yeah.
We never set an appointment until we've done the qualifying questions. Then we set the appointment if they're able, ready, and willing. And if not, then we let command take over. Okay, because that's how we don't waste our time.
Got it.
Okay. Hey, Krista. Okay, love that all the cameras are on. Love, love, love this. Okay, before we have any further discussion about any struggles you may be having and wanting to mastermind around, Maria, I've asked her to be on specifically today, although she usually is, to share something that has been very successful for her. Okay, now mind you, what she is about to share is not done in place of your calling and keeping in touch with your sphere, right? It's done in addition to. Now, is there anyone here who has done paid Facebook ads? Anyone? Okay. So Maria's going to talk about an ad that she placed. How long ago, Maria?
Sorry. This was almost a year and a half, January of 2022, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the business that's excuse me, the business that has come from it, the business that's still coming from it, and the length of time, right? Because paid Facebook ads are a little bit different. They're not instantaneous, and yet time on task over time. So think about this one ad. Well, it's two weeks in a row, right? A total. So she's going to give you all the details, and then we're going to break this down. Okay. So 2 ads, and think about if you were to do that every week and what her story is going to tell you and how you can get that ball rolling. So Maria, go ahead and tell your story.
Okay, so I had a listing on January 2022, and I did the first ad, a Facebook ad, and I got 60 leads, which I couldn't keep up with the follow-up. The first week, I'm like, oh, another one, and another one, and another one. But I made sure that everyone I was responding either right away or within, 2, 3, 4 hours, but the same day. And usually with Facebook ads, they do give you their phone number and their email. So, some of them are fake, but for the most part, or I almost got a lot of the were right, correct emails and phone numbers. So out of the first ad, I got 60 leads, and from that one, I 6 months later, I closed one transaction. Then I did another ad because we got an offer and it got accepted, and then the buyer didn't qualify or something. So I did another ad, and I got 30 leads from that ad. And from that ad, I got one in escrow right now. I have one that they want to buy a house and they want to sell their own house. So that's another 2 transactions there. And I have 2 that are still working with the lender. So it might take them another 6 to 9 months, but there are leads that I've been following up with them since I had the ad. And every time I send them a property, I follow up with, did you see this property I sent you? What do you think? Is it, does it work for you? It doesn't work. What do you like about it? So I think the follow-up is very important, even because I put them in a smart plan to call them a smart plan so that they can receive every month or every 2 weeks the listings. And then I put them in an MLS strip so that they can get every listing that is coming up in the market too. And like I said, every time I see that they receive an email or a property that's on the market, I call them, I send them a text, whatever, so that they can respond. Sometimes they don't respond, and but I just don't give up. I just keep following up with them. And then from the last transaction that we closed 6 months ago, I got 3 referrals too. So they do work. You just have to keep following up with them.
That is so fantastic. So that was from 2 ads. And if I recall, they were $30 each, right?
$30 each.
So for $60, she'll have 2 definite closings. Now another listing and a sale. She's nurturing 2 more. So who knows what else is going to come out of it, but 6 transactions from 2 $30 ads. Now, did you notice though, when was the first one that happened? Did anybody catch that?
6 months after that.
6 months later. So while this isn't necessarily instant business, and it might be, but rarely, okay, this is business that you have to nurture. But the key is, like Maria said, follow up, follow up, follow up, follow up. If you put these leads on neighborhood nurtures and you're following up with them, and remember, so Maria, when you put them on the searches, then Command notifies you when they get that, right?
Yes.
So that's how she's able to follow up and say, did you like the house I sent you? Even though she may not have known she sent him a house until Command told her, right? So let Command do the work for you and then do the follow-up. This is so great. Now think about this. And everybody has to do what's in their budget, but think about this. If you had a budget of $30 a week, or to start off with $30 a month, and you did that consistently over time, and it takes 6 to 9 months to get your first deal closed, what happens if you're consistent after that deal closes? You're going to have business consistently, right? This is above and beyond your sphere, which we already know is going to be at least about 75% of your business, right?
Yep.
So if you have a listing, make sure you're using these Facebook ads. Even if you don't, get permission from an agent in your office who has a listing to advertise it. And the key is now, how did you, and I know it's been a while, so maybe things have changed, but typically when we create these ads, we put some pictures in, we make sure they're the nicest ones, but we don't just type verbiage, right? We type, look at this 3 bed emoji, 2 toilet emoji, right? House emoji. So unfortunately, in the times we live in, people read things that are eye-catching, and emojis are part of that. And emojis have been proven, believe it or not, to help people look at and click on these ads. So don't just type stuff out. Make sure that you're using whatever emojis help you describe, because that helps big time. So what advice, Maria, would you give anyone on here that wants to place an ad?
Well, what I did is I did the ad, and then I also, like you said, lots of emojis so that you can catch people's attention. And I even put some uppercase letters, at the beginning. I'd say, look at this, like you said, look at this. And just, I keep it simple. Like, I don't want to write a lot of stuff in there, just, 3-4 things that are going to be like the headline, and that's it. And I did, what I did was I created a landing page. Brittany talks about that on, she has some classes about that too. Landing pages so that you can capture most of the leads too. And a lot of people, once they click on your ad, they want to see pictures, they want to see all the information. So just, if you take them to that and you give them the information, then they're happy to put their email, their phone number, and then that's the way you're going to reach out to them.
Awesome. Marty Miller in days 30 and 31, well, actually 29 through 31, creating and scheduling social posts using KW command, and then creating a paid social ad parts 1 and 2. So you can refer to those for how to do this. It's super simple, guys. You do need a Facebook business page in order to do that, because everything through command attaches to that, which you can easily create through your personal account if you don't have one already. This is so simple, guys. But the key is, remember, follow up, follow up, follow up. If you're not willing to follow up and you're not willing to reach out as soon as possible when these leads pop up, then don't waste your money and time. Because this requires work, but the work pays off. And will continue to, especially if you do this regularly. So, and then notice she said she had a smart plan, right? So, and there are smart plans in the library for this. So there are Facebook follow-up smart plans in the smart plans library that others have done before you. So you can just customize them to yourself, or you can create your own. And then Maria, the smart plan that you have, is that something you're willing to share to the smart plans library, or did you get it from there?
It's just the bi-weekly neighborhood nature. If I see
set up the search.
Oh, I usually do the MLS stripping, because once they tell me what they like, I do the MLS so that they can get listings right away.
Yeah, and then you're copied, so you're emailed when they come through.
it
Okay,
sends them
perfect.
a copy of what they're looking at. Yeah.
Perfect. So see how spending just a few minutes following up with each person, and then it's like on autopilot until they're ready to do something. And if you're scheduling time every day, schedule a half hour in your lead gen time to follow up with these emails as they come through. And you can even have a templated email, right? Hi, I just wanted to see how you like the home that I emailed you this morning. What did you think about it? Any questions from anyone, from Maria? Krista has one in the chat. What's it say? Did you get an email response from them, or did they just click on your ad?
Some of them I did get a response. Some of them just click on their on the ad and immediately sends me their information, and command notifies you that you have a new lead. I immediately go and look it up and call, text. If they don't answer the call, I text or email. So I do all three of them. Even if they answer, I try to engage them into like, okay, so if this doesn't work for you, what are you looking for? Something like that, so that I can say, oh, let me look and see if there's anything else, and I'll get back to you. And then that way I have a reason to call them again, and just little things like that. Oh, I didn't see that this one had, I don't know, something that they're looking for. Let me check, and then I'll get back to you. Or let me find if I have something else, if there's something on as soon as something comes in the market, I can let you know. If you're, I can add you into a MLS system too, like this email plan or something like that. So most of the time they are willing to do that, because they're the ones that were interested in, looking at the property in the first time.
Yeah. And Krista, I saw your comment. You're concerned about calling because of the do not call list. So if they provide you their phone number, you can call them. That supersedes the do not call list. If they don't provide your phone number, you can't call them if they're on the do not call list. But if they provide it, that's giving you permission. And I appreciate that people are concerned about the do not call list, because that is very important. Very important. But that is one workaround. If they offer their phone number, the light is green. Well, thank you, Maria, for sharing that with us. And hopefully there will be many that will watch the recording of this and benefit, because it's so simple, it's so inexpensive, and takes relatively little time. And you can plan it into your normal, regular lead generation time blocks. It's just a little added extra. All righty. Is there anything else that you would like to mastermind around, or any struggle that you might be having that we could talk about as a group?
Yeah, I'm pretty much struggling with like following up, and like if I meet people like somewhere, I try to call them or text them. If I don't get a response, I don't know how to go about that.
Okay, so I don't know if you were on yet when we were talking to Ernie about the open house follow-up, right? And trying, you know what, give me just a minute.
A few moments later.
Okay, so this is what we were talking about earlier. Can everybody see that? Okay, 48% of salespeople never follow up with a prospect. Think about that. And this is true of agents, and I know this to be very true of agents. Okay, think about, you spend all the time and effort to do an open house, you collect leads, you talk to people, you build rapport, and then you close up the open house and you never follow up. A lot of agents do that, right? 48% of salespeople never follow up. 25% of salespeople make a second contact and stop. 12% only make 3 contacts and stop. Only 10% of salespeople will make more than 3 contacts. Yet, look at the rest of this. 2% of sales are made on first contact, 3% on second, 5% on third, only 10% on the fourth. 80% are made on the 5th to the 12th contact. Now that's sales in general. Real estate specifically has been proven to be 8 to 12. The rest of this holds pretty true. So if the sweet spot is 8 to 12 times, and most are giving up after 2, and then definitely the vast majority after 3, and only 10% are doing more than 3 times, we're missing out on where it is, because where's the sweet spot? That was a question.
And the 12.
8 to 12.
Yeah. So
10, 12.
it's so important, guys, that you're following up. So if you talk to somebody and they give you their contact information, that's the hardest part, is getting the contact information, right? So if we get the contact information, then we have to follow up. Don't be like the vast majority who don't. So Fabi, let me ask you, what do you think is getting in the way of you following up?
So I met this guy at the gym. He talked to me about buying a property, and then he told me that he wants to sell his current house and buy a new house for double the price. So his current house is about 1.5, and he wants to buy about a $2.8, $3 million house. I've been following up with him. I called him. He hasn't answered. I texted him a couple of times. He hasn't answered. Let me see what was the last text. I think I've texted him multiple times, and I just feel like I don't want to annoy him too much to the point where either he blocks me or something, or he just like puts me on silent or something so he doesn't hear from me or something. So how do I go about being nice about it, and also at the same time telling him I want to meet him in person, get his property listed first, because first we're going to sell the property, then we're going to be able to buy the other property.
Okay, so a couple things here, right? So the first step is actually having a conversation with him and asking those qualifying questions, right? As the seller qualifying questions first, because we've got to sell the property, and then also the buyer qualifying questions, because first we have to find out, is he able? Then is he ready? And is he willing, right? And so if all 3 things aren't in place, then it may not be an appointment for now. It may be an appointment for down the line, and you'll continue to follow up. So, do you have him on a neighborhood nurture?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so that's
But I don't know where he lives, so I just put he told me where he wants to move to, but I don't know where his current house is. But I just selected multiple areas around that area where he wants to move.
Okay.
And I put him on the bi-weekly neighborhood nurture and all that. So
okay, well, that's perfect. So then we go to the 21 days of pain, right? So when somebody has actually raised their hand to say, yes, I want to do real estate, then we continue to follow up with them 21 times, 21 days in a row. Now, it can be 5 out of 7 days. So for basically 3 weeks, you're going to follow up, and each follow-up, you're going to change it a little bit, right? So you're going to call, text, email. Don't just call every time or text every time or email every time. You've got to do all 3 of those things consistently for 21 days. Okay. Now I'm going to give you, let me go into the PC toolkit, because I've got to remember what it's called or where it is. But there is a conversation helper That is very helpful for the place that you're at. So give me a second here. This one? Nope. This one. Okay. It's in the other conversations folder of the PC Toolkit, and it's called, the title of it is Voicemail After a Few Attempts. Okay. So it goes like this. Hi, this is Fabi from Keller Williams. I've tried to reach out to you several times about helping you sell your home or buy a home. I've left a few messages. I'm not sure if I haven't heard back because you're busy or if you've already been helped. Please call and let me know either way. I certainly don't want to bug you if you're all set, but I definitely don't want to leave you hanging either if you still need help. You can reach me at talk to you soon.
And this would be an email or a text?
That would be a voicemail.
Okay.
So I would call and leave that voicemail.
Okay.
And then the next day, if you don't hear anything, use that same script and put it into a text and say, hi, so-and-so, I left you a voicemail yesterday, just following up, and basically reiterate it.
Okay.
Okay. So make sure that by doing that always, right? The voicemail first, a text, then maybe an email. You're letting them know, hey, I'm not trying to bug you, but you said you wanted help and I don't want to leave you hanging. Because also remember, people get busy. How many times have we meant to call somebody back or we meant to text somebody back and we forgot, right? Especially like I always tell you guys, if you need something from me, you have to email me. Right? If you need me to do something, because I don't unbold an email until I take care of it, even if it takes a few days, depending what it is. But if you send me a text and I might leave the little blue dot, I don't know if you can see that, the little blue dot so that I will remember, but then, I mean, look at all the texts that I get. That little blue dot could be 100 texts down and I'm scrolling, oh, I don't see a blue dot. I must have took care of it. So it's so easy for things to fall through the cracks. And I promise you, here's the thing. You don't ever stop until they tell you to. So if they tell you to, then you stop. So you keep going until you either make contact or they tell you to stop. Because they reached out to you, they had a conversation, they told you they wanted to do something.
Right. They gave me a phone number, email, and everything.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Once you've done that for 3 solid weeks, right? Now you're not going to do it every day. Follow up with them maybe once a week at this point, right? If a month's gone by for once a week, maybe you're going to follow up every couple of weeks, and you've got your neighborhood nurtures too. Just enough to let them know you haven't forgot about them. You're here when they're ready. So for 3 weeks, it's every day, and then you can back it down and then let command do the work for you from there. Just remember, if you're at that point where command's doing the work, make sure you set a task to tell you to actually call them at a certain time. So don't get discouraged. Just keep going.
I think it's, let's say, even if I get a response from him, what would be the next step? Like meeting him in person or something?
So every time you call, have your seller qualification list. It's in the PC Toolkit, in the conversation helpers for sellers. Have that ready, right? Because you want to get all of that information. We've been talking a lot about this in a lot of our classes. You don't set an appointment until you've had that conversation. It's a series of several questions, but you have it conversational style, right? And make sure and get their motivation, because what if, yes, they want to sell and do this, but in asking those questions, you find out, oh, their child doesn't graduate from high school till next year. And that's when they want to do it. Yeah, they want to do it based on the conversation you had, but when do they want to do it, right? What's their motivation for the time frame? So it's super important that we know that first. Then we set the appointment if they're able, ready, and willing. Otherwise,
if they're gonna do it, let's say 6 months down the road, 9 months down the road, is there like an agreement I can get signed for them to work with me only?
for a buyer, you could, but I wouldn't at that point. I would be doing my job by regularly following up. So letting command do the follow-ups, right? The bi-monthly neighborhood nurture, and then you calling them like once a month. If they're 6 months out, call them once a month. When you get to 3 months out, call them every couple of weeks. And just to, make sure that they're on track. And then when you get to, where you're 2 to 4 weeks out, then you're going to want to re-emphasize those questions and then start thinking about setting an appointment.
But isn't there like a way, like a form that I can be like, whenever you're ready to list your house, you're gonna list it with me? Isn't like there's no form like that?
No, we don't take listing agreements that far in advance. So we have a buyer's representation agreement that you can date that out for a year or two or whatever. So they'll agree to purchase a home with you, but we don't do listing agreements that far in advance.
Okay.
The key is you keep following up with them regularly. And that doesn't always have to be a phone call. Once you've established that relationship, those neighborhood nurtures are you're following up with them, as long as at least once a month. If it's 6 months out, you're calling them personally.
Okay.
And even if you don't talk to them, leave them a voicemail. Let them know you're just following up to make sure they're on track. Call you if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'll follow up with you by phone in another 30 days or so. So, right, take pressure off of them too, right? When you leave messages at that point, take the pressure off. There's no need to call me back unless you have some questions. I'll be calling you back. But I'm looking forward to talking to you, whether you call me or I call you next time. Right? Because if they're not ready and everything's on track, if they're like, oh, one more thing, I got to call this person back, right? But if you like take that off of them, then that's going to help the relationship as well.
Got it.
By the way, when you're calling your sphere and leaving messages, you can do the same thing.
So if I have like a couple of buyers that I'm working with, you think it's a good idea to get the, what is it, buyer representation agreement?
If
Get it
you have
signed?
buyer consultation or you are actively showing property, yes. The way you should be doing it is, I want to buy a house. Great. I have a few questions I want to ask you. That's the buyer lead sheet, right? The buyer qualifying questions. Once you know they're able, ready, and willing, then you have a buyer consultation appointment. At that time, you're setting all the expectations, you're finding out their needs and wants, and you shouldn't end that appointment without the buyer's representation agreement signed. If you have some buyers you're working with and all that's been done and you didn't get the agreement signed, that's fine. Just go ahead and get it signed the next time you meet them at a property. You say, you know what? I realized we didn't sign the buyer's representation agreement, and my broker requires this for all buyers that I'm working with.
Okay.
But you should never
Because I'm thinking if I send them to like a lender or something, to get like pre-approved, and then they end up working with someone else, the lender tells them to work, let's say a lender has their own son or somebody else that they work with as a realtor, like the preferred realtor they work with.
You shouldn't be sending anybody to that kind of a lender.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm worrying about. Like if I send my clients to get a pre-approval from a lender and I end up losing that client, which pretty much means the lender gave that client to somebody else.
Not necessarily. There's all kinds of reasons buyers go to other agents, right?
Right.
But that's why it's our job that we do this a certain way. We start with the qualifying questions, then we have a buyer consultation, then we get the buyer rep agreement signed, then we start showing property once they're pre-approved, right? And when we skip any of those steps and just go to showing property, that's when we're at risk of losing buyers to other agents. Okay, so we need to be the professionals that we are and do things in a certain order, right? Just like when we go to the doctor and we say, you know, I've been having this pain in my side and it's off and on and I don't know what's going on. If he went from that to a prescription and didn't even do a checkup or ask questions to get more details, how often does it last? Is there something you eat when it comes up or that type of thing? He's not doing his job, right? That's malpractice.
Mhm.
Throwing pills at a problem that he doesn't know anything about. So a realtor's equivalent to malpractice is a client saying, I want to buy or sell a house, going straight to the appointment and never asking the questions, never getting the needs and wants or getting the agreement signed. They go from, I want to buy or sell a house to, great, let me come to your house and list it, or let's go show houses. And they skipped everything in the middle. Those are the clients that you're at risk of losing, almost guaranteed. But when you do it the right way, according to the model, those are the clients you won't lose because you're giving them that fiduciary professional service. Okay. And if you have a lender that you're worried about that with, don't use that lender. Okay. You guys reach out to your market center's local preferred lender. All of you have an in-house lender, regardless of what market center you're in. Reach out to them, talk to them, ask them questions. Ask them what their follow-up is when you send a buyer to them to be pre-qualified. Okay, make sure you know that and solidify that relationship to be able to work together with them as part of your team.
Okay.
Good questions though. And I know we've talked a lot about this recently, but I can't emphasize enough, and you guys can't hear it enough, how important it is to follow the model and the process. So if you guys are working with anyone that you haven't followed the process with, if you have a buyer and you haven't asked the qualifying questions yet, please call your buyer and have a conversation. And in that conversation, be finding out the answers to those questions. Okay, because sometimes when we think, man, I've been working with this buyer for 3 months, they just won't make their mind up on anything. I'm tired of showing them houses. Well, are they ready? They may be able, they may be pre-qualified, but are they ready? Those questions help you figure that out. Because remember, it's able, ready, and willing.
Just a quick question. I'm seeing a lot of these buyers are going on Zillow and contacting the listing agent directly.
Mhm.
And they're asking them to represent them also, like as a buyer. So the buyer, like the agent does like the dual representation. How do you avoid that?
Well, what do you mean by how do you avoid that? Because if just a random buyer reaches out to them, I don't know how you avoid that, but you avoid the people you're working with by doing that. That's part of your buyer consultation, right? You're going to see all kinds of ads online. You're going to see Zillow ads. You're going to see realtor.com ads. You're going to see open houses when you're driving down the street. You're going to see new home subdivisions you may want to visit. Please don't go without me, right? If you see something on Zillow or realtor.com or any other site that interests you, text me, send me the address, I'll look up the information. Because just as an FYI, Mr. Buyer, the property may not still be available because those sites aren't always accurate. Right? So part of it is setting up the expectations and how you work together. And when you let them know you're going to be there for them to represent them and give your best, that's how you're going to keep them. But you're going to keep them by starting with the questions, then the consultation, then the agreement. Right? Now, if it's just some random person you've never spoke to and they call the listing agent, there's no control over that, right? Because you as a listing agent, if you're advertising on Facebook or have a sign in the yard, you want those people to call you, right? Because you want those leads. So other listing agents are no different. So make sure you set those expectations with your buyers.
I get it, but what I'm saying is like even the people that are like, even if you go door knocking, you know, people that live close to in my neighbor, they even if they know I'm a realtor, you know, and even if they've told me they wanted to buy a house or sell a house or buy a house, let's say, and they still go on like Zillow and see whatever, you know, what's new and what's new in the area or something. And from my experience, they feel more comfortable just calling the listing agent directly. And they feel like they're saving money or something by not getting another agent involved. I feel like that's on their mind. They feel like they're gonna get it cheaper or something. But I just don't know how to like go about that.
So again, it goes back to, if somebody tells you they want to buy a house, you ask those qualifying questions, right? Because you're getting their motivation, you're building rapport, and then you set a buyer consultation. That is separate from asking the questions. Now, can you have it right then and there if you're in person? Sure, you can go from asking the questions to the buyer consultation. But part of the buyer consultation is to set those expectations. Let them know, Mr. Buyer, you're going to see all kinds of things online. I have access to everything that is available. And so please reach out to me if you see something online that's of interest to you. And then you should explain to them how Zillow works, right? Because a lot of times they're on Zillow looking at a house and it's not even available anymore. Okay, so Zillow is not accurate. There are 2 times when Zillow's accurate. It's accurate the day the listing goes live, because the MLSs share that in basically real time or within a couple of hours. It's accurate when it says there's an open house, because the MLS shares that information. But once it goes pending or sold, it's not accurate. It sometimes takes months for that to reflect on Zillow. So buyers, more times than not, will send you an address that's already sold, unless it came on the market that day. So set their expectations. But this is all part of, if you just door knock and you have a conversation and they say they want to buy a house and you're not asking those questions and you're just waiting for another time to follow up, then that's where you're losing momentum, right? Be ready with those qualifying questions, because you're already showing your professionalism. You're already showing your want to help them. And then once that happens, the buyer consultation sets that stage. And so you can assure them that, you know, the listing, if you have a buyer who wants to work with a listing agent, or they tell you, I'd rather just call the listing agent, you can say, well, Mr. Buyer, I understand that. However, I have all of the same information that the listing agent has available to me on the MLS. And if there's a unique question, I can reach out to them and find the answer for you. And it doesn't save you any money at all to work with the listing agent, because the seller pays all the agent fees, right? The seller pays the commission. And as a matter of fact, Mr. Buyer, it's better for you to be represented by your own individual agent rather than somebody who's working in the best interest of the seller. Because I want to negotiate the best deal for you in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of hassle. And of course, if you're trying to represent both, you're going to word that differently and let them know that you will be a fiduciary, right? But in that circumstance, that's what you're going to say.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. I just want to give you an example of why I'm talking about this. So there was a house that was on sale on my street, and it was some, I think, young new agent that put it on sale. And it was Keller Williams agent too. And then 2 days later, I called the agent and he tells me it's already in escrow. They already have an offer accepted 2 days after the listing. And the buyers who put in the offer and got their offer accepted, I know those buyers. But what they did was they just called the listing, because I mean, I wasn't following up with them regularly. and I didn't know they were in the market to buy, first of all. And then they called the listing agent directly, and they told the listing agent they don't have an agent, they want to be represented by him too.
Did they sign a buyer's rep agreement with you?
No, they didn't.
Then they didn't have an agent, did they?
No, they didn't.
So
So I wasn't even aware that they were in the market to buy. But the long story short, they ended up telling the listing agent to represent them as well, to get their, escrow started and everything. So the listing agent represented both sides,
okay,
and now they're in escrow.
okay, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying I didn't get the half of the, buyer. I didn't get to represent them. That's what's wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with
Except that
their
if you're-
transaction.
Okay, but Fabi, listen to what you said. Okay, you said they know you're an agent. Okay, that's good. But you didn't know they were in the market to buy.
Right.
That meant either you weren't following up, and I'm not saying this to be mean, I promise. It's for all of us to learn from this, right? That either meant you weren't following up, or you weren't having the proper conversations when you were talking to them. Because once they say, I'm thinking about buying a house, you must ask the qualifying questions. Now, maybe they didn't say that to you. Okay, it's gonna happen sometimes. We're not gonna get everyone out there. But remember, in our conversations, this is why it's so important to practice these. If you're having a good conversation with somebody where you're door knocking, don't walk away without asking them, are you thinking about buying a home? Are you thinking about selling your home? Right? Because it's our job to ask the right questions. It's our job to follow up. And if they're in command and they're on nurtures and we're following up, then you'll be top of mind when that comes up. But if you're not doing that, and by the way, I'm not saying you, Fabi, I'm saying you as all of us, right? If you're not doing that, then they're going to call the agent who they last saw, which in this case was the sign in the yard. Because most agents most clients will use the agent they last spoke to, unless you're really doing a good job of being top of mind. And so rather than, I know it's discouraging, okay, I can't take that away, but rather than focusing on that, focus on the lesson here, right? And doing that much better at practicing your conversations and following up in the future. So look at this as a learning lesson to help you know what to say and questions to ask later with other people.
Like you say, with their sphere of influence, if we don't call them, somebody else is. Bottom line,
Yeah.
somebody else is going to. So
And Krista put in the
get
chat,
out
and
there.
that's so true. It's our job to make buyers understand the value we bring and our commitment to work hard to represent them.
Mhm.
Very well said. So I'm glad you brought that up though, Fabi, because this circumstance, you're not the only one this has happened to. It's happened to everybody at some point in time. So it's a really good conversation to have. And it helps everybody. So thank you for bringing that up. All right, guys. Well, we are at the top of the hour. Good conversation today. Make sure you go to Ask a Coach if you have other things. We have them every single day of the week. And you can always email us and use WhatsApp too. So everybody have a productive week. Go out and have those conversations, get those agreements signed, right? Make sure you're doing things in the proper process of the model. And you can't go wrong that way.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.